19 Questions for Muslim Scholars Part 5. The Quran is simple to understand. 54:11. Whoever opens his her mind and heart as a monotheist and takes the time to study it, will understand it. This understanding will be enough for salvation. Beyond this, to understand the multi-meaning verses, you do not need to be a messenger of God. If you have a good mind and have studied the Quran as a believer, that is, if you have a deep knowledge, then you will be able to understand the true meanings of multiple meaning verses. The verse 3:7, which is about the multiple meaning verses, points this fact in a multiple meaning way. This is an interesting subject which warrants another article. No one knows their true meaning except God and those who possess knowledge. O you who believe, do not place your opinion above God and His Messenger. 49:1. Followers of hadith and sunnah claim that God is represented by the Quran, and the Messenger is represented by his opinion on the Quran. Thus, they claim that the Quran is not enough for salvation. Some people may not utter this claim straightforwardly. They may even claim that the Quran is complete and enough for our guidance. However, further questioning will reveal that their Quran is not the Quran. The Quran is the one that consists of 114 chapters and 6,346 verses. It is a mathematically coded book. However, their minds are confused, and their Quran is contaminated with human speculations and limited by a snapshot interpretation. They try to scare the believers by saying, "You do not like the Messenger." The belief that God is represented by the Quran, and the Messenger by his teaching is a satanic claim. There are several points to remember. Quran represents God and his Messenger. Obeying the Quran is obeying God and the Messenger. Quran never says, "Obey God and Moses," or "Obey God and Muhammad," but Quran consistently states, "Obey God and the Messenger." This is because the word messenger, rajal, comes from the message risala. The message is entirely from God. Messengers cannot exist without the message. Messengers as humans make mistakes. Thus, when believers made a covenant with Prophet Muhammad, they promised to obey him conditionally, i.e., his righteous orders. 60:12. Moreover, God specifically orders Muhammad to consult the believers around him. 3:159. If nobody can object to the personal decision of the messenger, then consultation is meaningless. However, whenever the final decision is made, it should be followed. During their lifetimes, messengers are community leaders. In this regard, messengers are not different than the believers who are in charge. 4:59. Both should be obeyed. But this obedience is not absolute. It is open for consultation and discussion. The position of messengers are different during their lives. They are interactive teachers and curious students as well. We have the chance to ask them further questions, discuss issues, learn their intention, and even correct their mistakes. On the other hand, they have the opportunity to correct our misunderstandings. However, when they pass away, their teaching becomes frozen and loses its advancing three-dimensional character. The frozen, snapshot fragments of knowledge is a dangerous weapon in the hand of ignorant people to stop God's teachings. They defend every plain error in the name of the messenger. They insult every sincere student of God's revelation. Say, I do not ask you for any wage, but what I ask from each of you is to take care of the relatives. 42:23. This verse is mostly abused by Shiite Muslims. They claim that Prophet Muhammad was ordered to ask help for his relatives. This distortion created a class of blood-sucking people surviving on charity. Hundreds of thousands of people in Iran, Iraq and other Middle Eastern countries claim that they are descendants of Prophet Muhammad, Sayyid or Sharif, and they are entitled to obligatory financial help. They abuse the verse mentioned above to exploit people economically. However, the verse does not say, "my relatives." The context of the verse is plain enough to state that Muhammad does not need a wage from the believers, and if they can help somebody, they should help their own relatives. Indeed, helping the relatives is a divine command repeated in 2:83, 4:36, 8:41, 16:90. The special status given to the descendants of Muhammad through Fatima and Ali has created a privileged and sacred religious class. Let's take an analogy. The Quran broadcasts a very clear message. However, the problem is with our receivers. If our receiver does not hear the broadcast or cannot understand it well, then something is wrong with our receiver and we have to check it. If the signal is weak, we need to recharge our batteries or reset our antennas. If we do not receive a clear message, we need to tune into the station of Quran alone, in order to get rid of the noises and interference from other sources. We may ask some help from knowledgeable people or experts for this task. If the receiver does not work at all, then we have to make a sincere effort to fix the broken parts. However, if we believe that the problem is in the broadcast, then nobody can help us. The divine broadcast can be heard in detail only by those who sincerely tune in, i.e., those who take it seriously and act accordingly. The condition of our receiver and the antenna, the power of the battery, and the precision level of our tuning are very important in getting the divine message properly. A. If the verse 33:21 requires Muhammad's hadith, then why would not the verses 60:4-6 require Abraham's hadith? Which books narrate hadiths from Abraham? B. You try to justify your collections of hadiths by using 33:21. Ironically, your collections do not provide an exemplary character. How can you claim that an eye-gouger, a urine-prescriber, a sex maniac is a good example? C. The Quran states, "Obey God and the Messenger." How can you twist this commandment and make Bukhary, or Al-Kafy, and many other storybooks as the second source of Islam? According to verse 4:59, we have to obey the people in charge too. Thus, does it mean that Islam is a co-authored religion by at least 3 sources? D. The first verse of chapter 9 states that an ultimatum is issued from God and His Messenger. We know that the verses about the ultimatum are entirely from God. Muhammad was not the co-author of the ultimatum. Muhammad's only mission was to deliver God's message. 16:35, 24, 54. Thus, the reason that God includes the messenger in 9:1 is messenger's participation as a deliverer of the ultimatum. Why don't you apply this explanation to other verses where the word messenger is mentioned after God? E. Why do you distort the meaning of 53:34 by taking it out of context? F. By claiming that it is the mission of the messenger to explain the Quran, you contradict 16:35, 55, 2, 75, 19 and many other verses. In order to support your claim, you opt a different meaning of litubayina in 16:44. In fact, the word litubayina of 16:44 is no different than the one in 3:187. This verse tells us that the people who received the revelation should proclaim the scripture to people, and never conceal it. How can you claim that the meaning of litubayina in 16:44 is to explain but not you have created a privileged class out of descendants of the Prophet Muhammad by misinterpreting 42:23. What are the Arabic equivalents of the relatives and my relatives? Which one is mentioned in that verse? يقول أهلكت مالا